Good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. Hope you all are doing well. Let's take a look and see what's going on with Bitcoin for the day. So, taking a look at our daily candle, we are getting some sort of a swing high here. Basically, I mean, this was to be expected, right? We can't just go up forever. I definitely am happy with how this has been consolidating. We made a high of 78,814. Right now our low is 76,450. We're not really dropping that much, even though we are kind of making this tweezer top here. Honestly, I'm expecting for price for right now to maybe visit right around the top of this order block right here, or this yellow line right here at 75,879. I don't believe for right now we're going to really get into this order block just yet. I think we'll visit maybe the top of it, even to a little bit in this inside of it. But I'd be surprised if this weekend, or at least for right now, today, if we were to visit more so into this order block down into the midway point. I don't think that's going to happen. From what I can see with liquidity and with our support and resistance lines, but you never know. That's just kind of my estimate for right now. You're getting a drop into the 76 range again. You've been kind of consolidating within the upper 76 to the low 77 range for right now. Again, extremely bullish sign, guys. I mean, you're not really getting a follow through to the downside. I personally am not shorting, or I'm not looking to short. The only time where I would possibly maybe look into getting into a short is if we started really losing some of these key levels. I would say maybe even losing 75, 879, 76K area. That would be possibly a decent time to chance it. But even still, you got to think that there's a potential that you can just kind of flag out here. And obviously, this is on the daily, so this is not going to flag out for this long. But there's potential, at least for a couple candles, that you can maybe kind of make some sort of flag like this, and then pump, right? And get into the 80,000 range. So for me, I'm going to just kind of sit on my hands because it was a very profitable week and just wait for my long entry once again. I think that's the safer bet, especially because we know now, unless we lose 68,985 on the daily and we don't get that golden cross, which at this point, this looks inevitable that we're going to get that golden cross, as long as we don't just free fall down. You got to assume that we're going to get that golden cross on the daily and the trend has actually reversed. Once we get that golden cross on the daily, especially if we start flagging out here, even if it's that downwards, bull flag, you have to assume that we're basically we've bottomed out for the daily, and that we're going to start basically trending up, at least on the smaller macro time frames. Your 3 day looks halfway decent. I told you guys on the 2 day that you have to expect that we're going to at least come up and visit this 80, this 200 MA up here. So there could be quite a bit of time, especially if we are going to start seeing the bull market come back in. There could be quite some time where we just kind of consolidate, especially we have to get these moving averages tight on the 2 day, 3 day, 4 day, as well as the 5 day. So there could be some time that we consolidate, guys. Just know that it's not going to just go up only, right? There has to be some point we have to just keep consolidating and then move our way up. It's going to be a long kind of drawn out bottom before we really start seeing some fun up into 100K range again, and even probably higher than our all-time high. All right, let's take a real quick look at the 10 hour. 10 hour is somewhat, I mean, this could even be, it probably looks different on some of the other time frames, but this could be kind of like your megaphone type of thing, is what it kind of looks like to me. And that could, potentially be bullish or bearish. It could be a continuation as well, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. 8 hour, you kind of got that tweezer top there. No big deal though. You did lose the 77,421 on the 8 hour, so it's something to watch there. I would definitely expect for us to at least test this next support line down at 75,879. If not, like I said, the top of this order block right here at 76,251. Let's take a look here. So 4 hour, yeah, definitely. I mean, kind of. I don't really know what to call this pattern. I would say it's more so kind of like a megaphone. It could be kind of a rounded top. Definitely not really a bullish structure, in my opinion. Yeah, it's kind of just trading chop sideways. It's kind of a choppy sideways move for right now. I guess your 1 hour would be the closest thing that you could say is kind of flagging out. But then again, you kind of broke that, right? So to me, this was your flag right here. If you do play flag patterns and it just dropped, it went down and it's just slowly kind of chopping around and moving sideways, just like a normal Saturday, which is good. We don't want to see expansive moves on Saturday, so I am quite pleased with that. But I am expecting, like I said, guys, for us to get down into the low 76 range right now. I will show you that with liquidity, but that's kind of what I've seen for today. I did thankfully get out of my long, so I did take profits up here right before it dumped. It did look kind of sketchy to me, even though we were flagging out. So I was able to make a decent amount. Basically, I went from about 77.4-ish area up to about 78.7. So that was a decent amount, decent enough pump for me, especially, given a Friday evening trading. So I was able to make a decent profit there. Let's see, 5 minute. Let's see here. So yeah, you're just kind of flagging below the 200. It honestly, it looks like you lost a 10-minute 200 MA. Obviously, you lost the one in the 5. So you have to assume we're going to go to the 15-minute, right? And the 15-minute is right at 76,034. So that's going to be my target, guys, like low 76 range, like I said. That's going to be my kind of my first area that I'm going to be interested in, as potentially longing from, depending on how price reacts from there. I believe that would probably also align with some sort of 786 retracement. I don't know if you'd maybe take it from here, it looks like, up to here. Let's see. Yeah, not even there. I guess it would. I guess it would be there. Sorry, I was looking at the yellow line. So 76,176 could be a possible area that we could get a bounce off of, right? Above 76,034. Just be aware that if we do lose that 200 MA though on the 15-minute, you're probably going to drop to the 30-minute 200 MA, which is going to be a lot lower, or at least a 20-minute, I should say. 20 minutes right about the midway point almost. So 74, 572 would be your next target if you were to lose that 15-minute 200 MA. So the midway point of the order block would be your next target. All right, guys. That being said, as far as levels go, we kind of briefly discussed the areas to the downside to look out for. As far as to the upside, you're going to want to regain 77,421. That's going to be a major area of resistance, as we could see. And then obviously, if you're able to regain that, there's really nothing stopping price, to really start heading up to 82,429 if you're going to keep that bullish sentiment and you take out enough liquidity to the downside. So for me, my target for a bullish move up is going to be 82,429, at least into 80,500, if not that. So 80,500 would kind of be my first area as a potential area to take profit. But my ultimate target is going to be that 82,429, which takes out the double top that we see on some of the bigger time frames. All right, guys, that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at liquidity, see what's going on there. So let's drop into the 4-hour, kind of see where we're at. The 4-hour, obviously, kind of getting that rounded top like we discussed. There is no liquidity really to the downside, no bridges really to bring us to the downside. So you got to assume, not even 3x, 5x, 10, unless I really zoom in, you're really not going to see, you're going to see this, right? 74,449. So this would get you right about that middle of that order block, if we were to come down here. It is possible. But I just don't see a deep retracement for right now for Bitcoin. I don't think that it's as probable to happen. Obviously, it can happen, right? But it's just probability wise, because there's not a lot of liquidity below us, it's not probable that it's going to happen. Now to the upside, you're looking at 80,000, 80,005. Like I said, 80,440 is kind of where this ends, right? 400-ish. And then if you're able to get above 80,400, you can basically start, testing into the 82, high 82 range, it looks like, 82 to 83, 256. So that's kind of where I get that 82 number as well, especially checking off the 10x. You can see kind of that's where our red liquidity is in the 83 range. But that's kind of going to be my next target if we can get above 80,500-ish area. All right, let's take a real quick look at the 1 hour. So the 1 hour, let's see here. Let me kind of zoom out here. So this is what I meant by like the, basically the 76-ish area. You can definitely drop into 76K even, right? 75,970. That's kind of where I've been targeting. Um, Unfortunately, there's not really a green, at least a green order or a yellow order here to kind of stop us. There is a potential that it could just kind of keep falling through as long as it wants to, right down even to 72 300-ish if it really wanted to. Um, but we don't have the, like I said, the 4 hour 25x to really support that move. The 50x does show that we're going to probably end somewhere around 75.6 if it wanted to, even 76K. But 76K is where I'm targeting for the 100x, at least just taking out these two pools right here of liquidity in the short term. Especially, like I said, guys, because the 4 hour doesn't have the 25x to really support the move down. 15 minute, let's take a look at that real quick. So 15 minute does have, it basically alludes to the fact that we're going to bounce off of the 200 MA here. Obviously, the 50x is going to show us that we can go below that, but the 100x does stop there, until we get all the way down to 75, the low 75 range. Okay. Now your trend if indicator is showing that the hourly, we basically reset the 4 hour back to a 0, and then the hourly's at a -1, so it is slightly bearish. Your daily's still going to be maintaining bullishness though at a 3, so it's extremely bullish on the daily. Just your 4 hour and your 1 hour, somewhat of your macro and, I guess, sorry, your meso and your smaller meso time frames are showing a slight bearishness. So that's kind of what I'm seeing as far as the 15 minute goes. And then we'll take a real quick look at the 5 minute before we go into our order book. Let's see if it'll switch up here. All right, so the 5 minute, you can kind of see a little bit more detail here, which is why I like to dive into here. Actually, I enjoyed that. Where to go? Okay. You can see, so if we really zoom in, a lot of red down to 76K even, right? So it is alluding to the fact that we could possibly get a bounce there. If we do get a bounce, you guys want to, basically try trading this. Again, never financial advice, but if you do attempt this, just know that you're probably going to want to take profits somewhere above taking out this triple top right here. Somewhere around 77.4 would be kind of my first target, 77.470. If not, then you could possibly take another profit somewhere around 77.700. But we don't have really the bridge to kind of get us up here just yet. You could hold on to it. You could wait and see. You could risk it if you wanted to maybe make like a smaller move type play. You have a smaller position size. You could definitely risk it. But just know that this is the more realistic target if you were to take the long from down here. All right, that being said, guys, let's take a real quick look at our order book. Taking a look at the order book, you do have quite a few orders down here. It does look like you do have some decent support for right now, around 75,575. So that would take you below the 15-minute 200 MA, unfortunately. But it does look like, if you were to take that long, that 76K long potentially, you could potentially put your stop below this, and that would probably be kind of your safe zone. That is one thing I will tell you guys, kind of an inside secret that I learned with the order book and the liquidity is if you find two orders, and I think I mentioned this before, but if you find two kind of yellow high orders in a row, usually that will act as support or resistance. And you can put your stop above or below that, and there's many times where it won't get hit. You could technically, I guess, use this as well if you wanted to bring your stop a little bit closer, so maybe putting it below 75.8. But the safer option, obviously, is to do a deeper dig and, essentially put it below 75.5-ish area. So that way you're kind of protected by all these orders, especially if you go in at 76K and then you can write it up. Like I said, I don't know if that would give you an exact 2-to-1. We can take a real quick look here. Let's see. So if I were to start it down here at 76, let's say 76.1. So you'd have to pull this down to about there, and then you'd pull this up. So yeah, you're getting more of like a 2.3-to-1, which is not the best, but honestly for weekend trading, that's not bad. It's just, I don't often go for an exact 3-to-1 just because of the fact that I like to protect myself really well when it comes to stops. So for me, this would be enough for me to just want to take it, especially with a smaller position. But again, do what works best for you. Again, never financial advice, but just know that this is a potential move that you could possibly try if you wanted to get some weekend trading in. Maybe you didn't catch a move during the week or you kind of FOMO'd out. this would be a possible move. Just know it's very high risk because it is the weekend. Okay. All right, guys, that being said, let's take a real quick look at our simple map, see kind of where levels may lie here for Bitcoin as far as support and resistance goes. Let's see here. So to the upside, let's take a look at some levels. So 77,430 is going to be obviously your first area of overhead resistance. Kind of 77,430 to 77,520 if you're able to get above there. 77,700 would be kind of a real good area to possibly take profit, because after that, it gives you the potential to basically roll through all the way to about 78,270 before we get even higher. So, just know that 77,700 is going to be your ultimate form, or your biggest form of resistance for today, probably, if you can get up there. And then to the downside, 76,770 is going to be your first area of support, followed by 76,620, 76,470, and then obviously getting into where I'm looking for is 76,140 to 75,960. So this area is going to be your biggest area of support. 76,470 would be a decent area, I would say, for support, but I'm not interested, like I said, because of weekend trading especially. I'm personally not interested unless we can get into the 76,100-ish area. All right, and then taking a look at your swing time frames, let's take a look and see where we're at here. All right, so let's see if that matches. So to the upside, 77,400 to 77,520, your areas of overhead resistance close by. You get above those, you can get that follow through to 77,700 and then possibly to 78,240, same as obviously our scalping timeframes. And then to the downside, you're looking at 76,770 to 76,620 as potential support zones, followed by 76,470, which would be a decent support zone. You could risk trying to long here if you wanted to be aggressive. I'm not interested because of, like I said, weekend trading. So I'm more so looking for 76 110-ish area to 75 960, kind of somewhere in here as a possible entry. All right. That being said, guys, that is what I have for you this morning. I hope you all have a wonderful Saturday. Try not to stay in the charts too much. I am expecting very slow, if not kind of snail's pace price action. It's not going to be very range bound because we did have such an expansive week. So try to get some rest in, spend time with your family, your wife, your husband, and just enjoy your weekend. All right, guys, that being said, that is what I have for you for now. I will give you guys an update later. I will be home later, so I will give you guys an evening update on Bitcoin to see kind of where we close for the daily candle. But I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you all later. Take care.